If you love D&D books with bestiaries and new player options, you're probably excited about the 2023 releases of Bigby Presents Glory of Giants and the Book of Many Things. It seems, however, those books will test a different kind of content than we used to. What are those differences and what are the reasons for them? To better understand that, we can delve into previous product sales figures, using the volume of Amazon reviews as a proxy. That shows which products sell more and by what margin. It would be a natural move to test different content for products that are not performing as well as the best-selling ones. That helps us to understand why some of the new D&D releases will probably be different to previous ones. But I can think of other reasons beyond that too. So let's break down each of the D&D main product lines to understand how their sales perform and what may be Wizards' strategy behind the release and what indications that brings for future books. Let's start with the core rules books. We'll use the average sales estimate for all three core rules books as a 100 base index for comparison. As we would expect, the Player's Handbook sells over 50% more than the remaining two core books, focused on Dungeon Masters. That should not be too much of a surprise, considering there are more players than DMs. I was actually expecting the difference to be much greater. It would seem to me that we have lots of players out there who like to have the Dungeon Master Guide and the Monster Manual to read for fun. Would that be your case? Moving on to starter sets. When we break them down, we can see how the crossover starter sets sell much fewer units. Does that mean they were a failure and that we should not expect new crossovers like that? Quite the opposite, in my opinion. I think those products have a very strategic reason to be. They're probably focusing on attracting specifically the Stranger Things and Rick and Morty fan base. In other words, they're aimed at new D&D players who would probably never try the game if it were not for those products. And that's the best new D&D fans you can attract, as there are also new customers that will come back to the game store many other times to shop other products. So don't be surprised if you see new starter set crossovers from other pop culture icons over the next years. When we have a look on rules expansion book sales, there's additional insight we can get. Bestiaries sell only a quarter of what the Monster Manual has sold. No wonder they're trying other content formats, such as Fizban's Treasury of Dragons and Bigby Presents Glory of Giants. I think Wizards wants to test how much of an upsell those books would be able to reach, compared to a Monster Manual 2 or 3 as we have had in previous editions. One could argue that Monsters of the Multiverse would match the exact description of a Monster Manual 2, but I speculate the main drivers for its release were others. First and foremost, filling up the third spot for a rules expansion gift set. The fact it was released as a standalone book only a couple of months after the gift set supports this argument. And then, Monsters of the Multiverse is basically a reprint of the Bestiaries chapters of Volo's Guide to Monsters and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. I think it basically fulfills two goals of the upcoming release of 1D&D. On one hand, it makes small updates on monsters' stat blocks to streamline them with 1D&D. On the other hand, it discontinues Volo's Guide and Mordenkainen's Tome, which brought much lore on certain monster types. It seems to me that 1D&D aims to establishing that each monster can have whichever lore of its own on the different worlds of the multiverse. I think Wizards wants to get rid of any one-fits-all generic lore for each monster type, making room for them to have whichever specific lore that is fit for individual campaign settings. Player options books, such as Xanatar's Guide to Everything and Tasha's Cauldrons of Everything, usually reach many more sales than Bestiaries. Under a marketing perspective, it's really a shame that releasing 30 new subclasses every year would probably destroy value in the long term, adding excessive rules and complexity and risking game balance. I think those figures help us a lot to understand what we can expect from next year's release of the Book of Many Things. I believe this book will be an attempt at providing an array of players' options without relying so heavily in new subclasses. What do you think? Do you agree with that assessment? Are you excited for the 2023 releases of Bigby Presents Glory of Giants? What about the Book of Many Things?